What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and it's everybody's favorite time of the month in the Dynasty space. I just dropped a Dynasty rankings update on patreon.com. As you can see here, it is absolutely beautiful to look at. I have my top 100 running backs in Dynasty, my top 100 wide receivers in Dynasty, my top 50 quarterbacks, my top 50 tight ends, and you have their RS grade prospect tier all on there for you, how much they changed since last time I did one of these updates, their value tier, their ranking, and I have a buy-sell designation for every single player. Now, what we're going to talk about today is my must-buy and sell Dynasty trade targets. We're going to go through 5 players that I think are either must-buy or must-sell within the Dynasty landscape right now. I think there's a lot of value to be had right after the draft where there's not a huge consensus, ADPs all over the place. There's a lot of value to be mined on the margin. So with all that being said, if you want access to the entire rankings list, all of my buys and sells, that'll be on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can find it in the description. You can find it in the comment section down below. But if not, just leave a like, subscribe, enjoy the video. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty bag.
All right, so with this first one, I'm almost ducking here because I know you guys are going to throw tomatoes at your TV screens, your laptops, your phones. This guy's really polarizing right now. But I absolutely love Trey Lance as a buy on rebuilding teams. If you're competing, if you're trying to make the playoffs, it doesn't make sense to buy Trey Lance. There's uncertainty around whether or not he's going to start in week 1. You have Purdy there, you have Sam Darnold there. But I love buying with all the uncertainty and all the negativity. If I'm a rebuilding team, doesn't have to worry about scoring points and can kind of just harbor a player with as much upside as Trey Lance. Now, when we talk about the discrepancy in rankings, he is per ADP going at the 606 as the QB 18. This is Adeko's ADP. He works with Drew over in the Bulletproof Discord. I'll make sure I link the ADP down below. They provide it for free, which is really cool. But he goes at the 606 as the QB 18 on there in terms of drafts in the last week. So startup drafts in the last week going on. My rankings, I have him as the 411 as the QB 16. So about a round and a half and 2 quarterback spots. Nothing too crazy, but we're starting to see him get moved down. He's one of these polarizing topics right now where people are either in love with him or they are very much out on him. And what I would like to bring to the table is that we shouldn't have a ton of confidence either way. I think anyone saying that Trey Lance is for a surefire bust or Trey Lance is a surefire superstar, I think both sides are being arrogant and being kind of dumb in the long run. I think a guy who is a legend in the space, JJ Zacharyson, I think he put it really well with these tweets. So I'm just going to read them off here. He said, a lot of wild Trey Lance extrapolation going on for a guy who played 1 game in the pouring rain last year and another where he threw 3 passes, which is the game where he broke his ankle. Totally fine if you prefer Purdy to be the starter, but burying Lance for his 2022 makes no sense. I'm saying here that you can question Lance. We don't have a large sample to work off of, but it's okay to say there's ambiguity as opposed to he's bad. We really don't have an answer to the latter. Everyone is projecting, not just the Lance hopefuls. I've said from the start that it's fine if they prefer to go Purdy. Makes plenty of sense. What I'm saying here is the only thing that changed for Lance post-injury is that Brock Purdy happened. It's not a Lance thing. People are making it a Lance thing. So what he's saying is that Brock Purdy being a good NFL quarterback and Trey Lance being a talented quarterback are independent variables. Of course, maybe that's not great for Trey Lance and his future on the 49ers, but in Dynasty, we have these players for life. You go somewhere else, you find success there, that's all good and well. All we have right now is a 4-game sample size of Trey Lance throwing more than 15 times in a game. And one of them came in a monsoon game against Justin Fields in week 1 this year. It was pouring rain. It was a really weird game. And even then, we're talking about 3 games here with 15 or more fantasy points, 2 with 20 or more fantasy points, 16.8 points per game in his first 4 starts. Right? We talk about a guy, Trevor Lawrence, first-round startup pick right now. His first 4 starts, he was at 14.5 points per game. So Trey Lance, in the small sample, again, these are his first 4 games ever with 15 or more pass attempts, he has at least scored fantasy points, right? It's not a Malik Willis situation where it's a small sample, but he looked god-awful in all of them. He held his own. He produced. He showed the Konami rushing upside that we're looking for. He had 10 or more rush attempts in 2 of the 4 games, minimum 7 rush attempts in all of them, 50 or more rushing yards in 2 of those 4 games. He is rushing. He's scoring fantasy points. Are the passing numbers perfect? No, but it's not going to be perfect for anybody in their first 4 NFL games. So I have a hard time looking at this sample in having any concrete takeaway. I think he at least flashed the upside that, one, the rushing has translated. Two, he can score fantasy points. Everything past that is to be determined, whether or not, he can sort of fall. For a guy like Trey Lance, he is going to score fantasy points, right? If he plays. And I had a tweet earlier today. We have seen guys, Mitch Trubisky, Sam Darnold, have both played. They have started over 50 games each in the NFL, third overall picks, and looked much worse early on. Trey Lance is not going to just get flushed out of the league after 4 games. He is going to get his fair shake. He's going to get his fair audition. Now, we don't know if he's going to be a franchise guy, but I would pencil him in to have a QB1 point per game season at some point. What we just saw Justin Fields do, right? Or we've seen Blake Bortles do it. We've seen Marcus Mariota do it. These guys who aren't per se franchise guys, but are still giving you fantasy points. And I think that is something that you should be valuing with Trey Lance. Now, with Trey Lance, what I do know, and what we have concrete evidence on, this is the cheapest he's ever been. This is his all-time dynasty value on Keep Trade Cut. This is the single cheapest he's ever been. Now, this can go one of two ways. Either the reports get worse and worse as the summer goes on and this number only drops and you can buy even cheaper later on, or he looks amazing in these OTAs and training camps and he starts getting buzzed, week 1 starter. So you can kind of look at it either way. I just think right now at his price, I would be buying, especially, again, I'm only really buying if I'm a rebuilding team because of this. He is somebody that has upside unlike any other 6th-round pick in startups. 8 of the top 12 picks in Dynasty are quarterbacks, and Dynasty Superflex are quarterbacks. It's dominated by quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are the only asset right now that can get you into like an untouchable area, right? If you want to go out there and trade for a Mahomes or trade for Josh Allen, you have to give an arm and a leg. And of those 8 quarterbacks in the top 12 of Dynasty ADP, 5 of them are elite Konami code QBs. And if we look at this bucket from the RS grades, these are quarterbacks that were elite prospects and also fit into the rushing category of Konami code. Konami code is just based on your market share of rushes and your market share of rush yards in your collegiate offense. All of these guys qualified. All of these guys have top 12 hits. Again, I cannot guarantee that he will be Mahomes or Josh Allen or Deshaun Watson, any of these great quarterbacks, but a Marcus Mariota one-off QB1 season feels very likely for him, whether that's on the Niners or the Vikings or whatever. I love betting on that because he almost feels like a Jalen Hurts type of asset, right? Where you don't even have to necessarily believe that he is a franchise QB. You just have to believe that if he's given the opportunity, he can score fantasy points. Because from there, if he starts and he's scoring fantasy points and he's giving you 18 plus points per game, or he's a QB1 and he's doing it on rushing upside, you have kind of like what Jalen Hurts was going into last year, where it's like, okay, this guy's going to score a lot of points, but does he have enough passing kind of like acumen to be a long-term starter in the NFL? And that's completely up for debate with Trey Lance. What I'm trying to say is he's going to get a fair shake. Again, we've seen QBs way worse than Trey Lance get a bunch of audition starts to make sure that they're busts. He's going to play more games. It's more than likely he's going to score a lot of points in those games. How long that he actually can maintain a starting gig in the NFL, that's up for debate, but I have to imagine once he's on the field scoring points, you can then make that decision. Maybe he becomes like a 2-3 round turn pick in startups, and you can say, you know what? I don't think he's a franchise guy. I'll cash out here. I just think that there's a lot of profit to be made, even if he's not a franchise stone cold first round startup pick. I think that he can at least score enough points and, flash the rushing upside to have a higher, sell point, if you would so please. Now, when we talk about what I'm buying Trey Lance at, again, this is if I'm a rebuilding team, do not send any of your future first for Trey Lance. I think that's one of the worst things you do. If you're a rebuilding team, your goal should be do not score any points in 2023, tank for the 101 in 2024. So do not trade your 25 first, your 24 first. Those are off limits. But if you find yourself on the clock late in rookie drafts right now, I mean, it's you guys know it's a wasteland once you get to like the 110, right? So if you can take the 109 even, where you can take like a Zay Flowers type and Jameis Winston here on the bottom and get Trey Lance, I love that. If I could do 110 straight up for Trey Lance, I love that as well. Again, any of those late firsts, absolutely love it. I love this as well, where if you can find the guy who has Daniel Jones or Tua and do kind of see if you can get, Trey Lance plus for Daniel Jones or Tua. This one is pretty savvy here. Trey Lance in a 23 first for Daniel Jones in a 23 second. I think as well, if you could do, I think you could almost do 1-for-1 swaps with some of these guys. Jared Goff, I would sell Jared Goff straight up for Trey Lance. I would sell Kenny Pickett straight up for Trey Lance. I would sell Jordan Love straight up for Trey Lance. Any of those type of guys in that area, I would do so on rebuilding rosters where I don't need points. Now, our next buy is for those of you guys out there trying to make the playoffs. I have two guys that I think are really cheap ways to get good rushing production and good RB fantasy production with some really nice upside here. We have Damien Harris and we have Rashaad Penny. These guys are back-to-back in my rankings and back-to-back in ADP. I have them 1201 and 1112, literally back-to-back. So 1201 and 1112, RB37, RB38. ADP, they're 1408, 1412, RB47, RB49. So I'm like 10 spots higher in terms of running back rankings and about 2 to 3 rounds, or I would say like 2.5 to 3 rounds higher than consensus. So I really like them. And I don't really understand the lack of excitement for these running backs. You guys know I'm chasing pass catching upside. That's why in years past I haven't loved Nick Chubb, and I've been chasing after these Saquons and guys who can catch passes and DeAndre Swift's when he first and second year. I want guys to catch passes. McCaffrey, Eckler, Ramondre Stevenson. But once we get to the double-digit rounds, there's not a lot of 3-down guys. Like even some of them are almost like fake 3-down guys. Where last year you could maybe said that like Chase Edmonds could be kind of like a satellite back plus, and then doesn't really work out. So in these double-digit rounds, I don't know why I'm struggling. I don't mind grinder running backs on good offenses or great offenses even in this. Like you're drafting these guys double-digit rounds. All you need is 15 points per game, like RB2 type production. And both of these guys, I think, have that upside where they can just be efficient between the tackles, running backs with, they're both the favorites to lead their teams in goal line carries on great offenses. The Eagles and Bills last year were top 8 in red zone trips. There's going to be plenty of opportunity. They're going to move the ball. There's going to be a lot of efficiency, right? Because you have Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen freezing linebackers and freeing defensive ends in the zone read game. And that's how you get a lot of efficiency between the tackles. And then on top of that, they're scoring a ton. Hold on. I don't know what's going on in my voice. All right, we're good now. Now, the other thing is that there's no other grinders in these backfields, right? So it's Rashaad Penny with the Eagles, and you have Kenny Gainwell and DeAndre Swift there, both guys who are receiving backs. And then you have the Bills, where it is Damien Harris, and then it's just like James Cook and Nyheim Hines, 2 other satellite backs. So there's a lack of competition. And again, I know that Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts are there, and they're going to take some touchdowns away, but they're going to bring the offense into the red zone a ton. And then also we had a guy like Miles Sanders last year, still had the 3rd most rush attempts inside the 10-yard line last year. It was one of 8 running backs with 10 or more rushing touchdowns last year, despite sharing with Jalen Hurts. So there's going to be plenty to go around. There's also a chance that the Bills, Josh Allen's getting a little bit older. They're paying him all this money. He got injured with the elbow thing last year. They don't need him ramming between the tackles in a Week 9 game up 20 against the Patriots, So I think that's going to come down a little bit. There's going to be a lot of touchdowns, efficiency for both of these guys. I think both of them are in play for 1,000+ rushing yards and 10+ rushing touchdowns in their ceiling. And the reason I think that they're so good is I think Jacob Sanderson is one of, I think, the best follows on Twitter. He's a guy that we've had on the channel before. I've co-owned teams with him. He is amazing, but I think you guys know me. I'm pretty good with wide receivers. I can sort of point at targets per out run and yards per out run and ADOT, but I think that he is very good, Jacob, at running backs. They make their bread and their money and their fantasy points off of just like opportunity a lot of the times. But he's good at kind of focusing in and reading into the right stats on why a running back is actually talented, right? Of course, you can look at like yards per carry, but that's kind of buoyed by things. You can look at yards over expected, and that's even sometimes like benefited by outside factors. But he said here, Damien Harris ranked in the top quartile in rushes over expected percentage all 3 years he qualified. He's produced between 0.4 and 0.67 rush yards over expectation each of those years. 2 out of 3 yards in the top quartile. 2 out of 3 years he ranked top 10 in PFF rush grade. He's just very good between the tackles. Like, he's not going to be a fantastic, crazy running back. He's not going to be the best in the league, but as a pure rusher, he's very good. He gets what he's blocked. He does his role very well. And that's what the Bills need, right? Last year, people were playing him, too high, and they're ramming Zach Moss and they're ramming Devin Singletary between the tackles, both like kind of inefficient plotters. It's going to be a lot better with Damien Harris to actually move the chains and do what they're looking for. Then you have Rashaad Penny, who he said, here's the deal with Rashaad Penny. He's a top 10 rusher in the NFL, maybe top 5. You don't need to worry about a rookie, and he's a better rusher than all of them but Bijan. You don't need to worry about Kenneth Gainwell. Penny doesn't catch anyhow. It's just health, which is pretty much what it is. He also said, for people questioning the top 10 claim, Penny's 2.1 rushing yards over expectation per attempt in 2021 is the highest on record in next-gen stats since 2017. He was second in yards created per touch, despite being a pass game 0. Yards created per touch, of course, ADOT and yards per catch is going to be higher than yards per carry. So if you can be one of the league leaders in yards per touch when you are a between the tackles grinder, then you are ultra efficient. He was number 1 in breakaway run rate. He is very good. When he's healthy, we've seen him be amazing. So we have 2 guys, very good between the tackles skill sets. They're on great offenses. We don't need them to catch passes anyhow because of their price and because of the role we're chasing anyways. So you can get these guys really cheap right now in Dynasty, and they're my 2 favorite targets on any team you have out there. It might be like Hero RB or a 0 RB team, and maybe you just want points to get in there, whether that's for like week 1 or just like your roster in general. Now, if these guys aren't going to be in your lineup, if these guys aren't going to be in your RB1 or your RB2 spots, I always like to have wide receivers in the flex personally. If they're not going to be in your lineup in week 1, you don't really have to go out there and trade for them. But if you have a team right now that you're trying to turn around from a rebuilder, you just need like a cheap running back option. Maybe Brees is sort of coming back from injury, and maybe you want a guy to kind of, fill in while he's working back. These are super cheap. I mean, this one right here, Penny in a 210 for a 207 and a 406, like that's free. Penny in a 211 to trade back from 206. That's insane. I think it's really just a Swift trade. Everybody's like really low on Rashaad Penny right now. 2023 round 3 pick. Give me Rashaad Penny for any third. 212 for Rashaad Penny. I would take that. Damien Harris for Tyler Boyd, of course. Damien Harris, Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson's like a 3rd or 4th round rookie pick. What's this? 2023 second, and then you get a 2024 second and a 2024 4th in return. Like that's pretty much free. These guys, you can acquire them for very cheap. I wouldn't want to pay more than a second, really. And even then, I'd kind of want something from their end. Now, the other side of this, we're talking about Rashaad Penny. We're talking about Damien Harris. Our first sell for today is going to be DeAndre Swift. And I'm shocked. I am somebody that has loved DeAndre Swift. I liked him coming out. I liked him after his first year. I liked him after his second year. I've always bet on DeAndre Swift. But we've gotten everything that we could possibly need to kind of confirm that he is not going to be, like, it's really sad to say this, but it kind of is what it is. Our biggest fear with these kind of pass catcher running backs that can be Kamara, Eckler, Aaron Jones, that they kind of just end up being Giovanni Bernard. And that's kind of the path that DeAndre Swift is heading on right now. Just from what we've seen, right? He's still yet to be utilized as a between the tackles guy. Last year, the Lions just used Jamal Williams and even used Justin Jackson at times. And we've even seen the Lions sign David Montgomery to a bunch of money for a running back and then draft somebody with the 12th overall pick just to replace DeAndre Swift because they don't even really want him around. So he isn't ultra talented, even though, he was a great recruit and he was great in school. He wasn't this, we hope that the upside was there, that he'd be the special talent. I think at this point, we kind of have our answer on what kind of talent DeAndre Swift is. He's good in his role. He's efficient. He can catch passes, but the idea of him being like this top 5, game wrecker that has a crazy upside from the receiving game, I'm not sure that's there. Now, I have him in my rankings as my rank 81, which is going to be 709. So he's my 709 as my RB 18. Per ADP, he is the 601 as the RB 16. So I'm 2 spots at running back lower than him, and I'm about 2 rounds lower than ADP on him. And it's really just because I don't really want a lot of those running backs after RB 15. I'm just prioritizing quarterbacks, tight ends, wide receivers. Like, I'm just good on that yucky part. Again, like, I'm not going to pay up for a DeAndre Swift or pay up for a J.K. Dobbins or pay up for a Miles Sanders or a Pacheco or any of these guys when Damian Harris, Rashaad Penny, Antonio Gibson are all free, along with even like, your Tank Bigsby's of the world are even a little bit more free than those guys. Talking about DeAndre Swift, the reason I am not super excited is because, again, that's his role, right? Giovanni Bernard. Maybe he could turn into Eckler or something. I don't think so, but it's like, this is not the team for that, right? he goes to the Eagles that everybody's pumped on, and I think it's a cool story. He's from Philly. He went to like one of the top private schools there. It was kind of. I mean, everybody I think in Philly was hoping that he'd go to Penn State or something. He ends up going to Georgia. It's kind of cringy. He has like a video of him on like the Rocky Steps, making like an announcement of what school he's going with. But if we look here at the numbers, man, like Philly was dead last year in both targets to the running back and target share to the running back. There is not a lot of opportunity there. And you can see there's kind of a correlation here, right? Like Chicago's towards the bottom, Baltimore's towards the bottom. A lot of these teams with rushing quarterbacks are towards the bottom, and they're stoneworse. And that's not because the Eagles don't have pass-catching options at running back. Kenneth Gainwell is a receiving back specialist that had 51 catches in his final year at Memphis. And then we have also Miles Sanders, who had 50 catches as a rookie, which was top 12 at the position. So those are two running backs that can catch passes out of the backfield, and they just chose not to because it doesn't make sense to. If you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who instead of checking it down to a running back, can just take off and do his own thing, why would you ever throw it to a running back? And then also on the few pass attempts that you have with a rushing quarterback, why would it ever go to a running back when you have A.J. Brown, the most efficient wide receiver of all time? You have Devonta Smith, you have Dallas Goedert. There's just so many other options that it's like, I don't understand what people are expecting when DeAndre Swift comes into this offense. He's not going to catch, he's not going to catch 70-plus passes. And that's what he needs to ever give you, like, difference-making production in fantasy. So I'm just, like, completely out on him. Again, like, Detroit just really put all the nails in the coffin of the way that they treated him and the way that they, shelled out money for a running back to come into the backfield. And then on top of that, drafted 12th overall, traded him away. So if I could cash out for a future first in any capacity, give me that all day. I'm selling DeAndre Swift. Yeah, so this is what you bundle DeAndre Swift with a second, and you go up and get any top 6 pick in 2023. I would absolutely love that. This one, DeAndre Swift and garbage for Drake London. That's almost like unrealistic. And then this one, kind of love DeAndre Swift a second and like a random tight end. You go get Kyle Pitts. See if you can take a tight end, add it to Swift, and then go buy Kyle Pitts. I just can't get there. It seems like everybody's like raving about this landing spot. I think now would be the time to sell DeAndre Swift. Now, a buy candidate we're going to talk about here is Tyler Lockett. He is my 1009 as my wide receiver 43. He's ADP's 1202 as the wide receiver 50. So I'm 7 spots higher, about a round and a half higher. And you don't really have to go into Tyler Lockett's profile. He's a known commodity at this point. It just seems like people are sort of pushing him down in Dynasty because Jackson Smith and Njigba's in the mix, which is fine. But Tyler Lockett, he's always been what he is, a good to great wide receiver 2. And he's been a guy who has found a way to produce next to Metcalf, and I think that he's going to find a way to produce next to Jackson Smith and Njigba, at least this year, maybe another year. And that's really all you need on a competitive team. This is another buy for any team out there trying to make the playoffs. I think Tyler Lockett's a great guy to just have that you can just, throw in your flex some weeks. He's been a top 24 wide receiver in each of the last 5 seasons on a point-per-game basis. Each of the last 5 seasons. That's different quarterbacks, Metcalf coming in, guys coming out. He has been Mr. Consistency, and I think that's why he's a perfect buy for a contending team, because he is kind of the cheapest way to get, like wide receiver 2 production. This is Mike Clay's top 30 projected wide receivers ranked, and then I have their keep trade cut ranked next to them, and then kind of what their difference is. Now, Keenan Allen's also a great buy when we look at this. Amari Cooper as well, Mike Evans, Mike Williams, and then Tyler Lockett is also a really good one. He's also the only wide receiver on this list outside the top 50 keep trade cut wide receiver. So he is a really, really nice value. And the thing that I love about Lockett is that he is outside the top 50 wide receivers in Dynasty, so he's dirt cheap. He's someone that is a good bet to finish as a top 24 wide receiver, as he has for each of the last 5 years. And then he's also winning you weeks, right? So if he's a guy that you can buy for nothing, and then you can just throw him in the flex some weeks when you kind of need a fill-in, like he's somebody that I think is the perfect, like not somebody that you want to have in your flex week 1, but someone that you can just like rotate in. There's bye weeks, there's injuries, you throw him in the flex, and he can give you massive, massive spike weeks. That's kind of just what Tyler Lockett has been. He is just one of 12 wide receivers over the last 2 seasons with 8 or more 100-plus yard games. It is him, it is Jefferson, it is Adams, Kupp, Hill, Diggs, Chase, Higgins, A.J. Brown, Mike Williams, McLaurin, Lockett, Lamb. That's a pretty damn good list. And he is by far the cheapest one in Dynasty. And he's a great bet to keep on giving you 100-plus yard games, multiple touchdowns, giving you winning weeks, whether that could come in the playoffs, kind of like what Mike Evans did last year. Tyler Lockett has upside for all of that stuff. So I very much love Tyler Lockett, especially when you guys see the prices you can get on Tyler Lockett, man. You can get him for free. Brian Robinson, easy. Tyler Lockett for a third, my God. Tyler Lockett and Robert Woods for the 301. Like, that's insane. Tyler Lockett in a 3 for your 210. Like, I love all of those. That's dirt cheap for a guy that can win you weeks, give you wins, is a great flex play to have on competitive teams. And I think this is the cheapest that he's been in some time because he's not scoring points. And I think everybody's lower on him because Jackson Smith-Njigba is there. But I think that there's enough ball to go around for them. Again, Tyler Lockett has made it work every step of the way, no matter what his competition has been, no matter what his quarterback has been. I'm down to just bet on that. And even if not, the spike week should still be there a few times this week. And maybe, wins you a couple games that you paid a third-round rookie pick for. Now, the last guy we'll talk about is a sell. And he's already pretty cheap, so it's not like this guy is a must sell. He is 1309 in ADP, tight end 19. He's my 1511 as my tight end 20. So it's like the market's not even that high on him. He's just somebody where I think there's some guys that are really big believers of Trey McBride and liked him a bunch coming out and then said, you know what he did last year, not a big enough sample. Let's bet on him moving forward. There's going to be no Zach Ertz in this offense next year. Why not bet on Trey McBride? And it's just like every metric that I look at for tight ends, man, he did not do well at all last year. Now, I actually have this chart on the Patreon, I think somewhere in the Discord, where I looked through all the tight ends and I charted their points per game, their targets per out run, their yards per out run, their ADOT, their yak per reception, their route percentage. And next to all of them, you see it's like colored a little bit, and you see in the parentheses is their percentile among all rookie tight ends since 2007. He is in the 35th percentile for points per game, 15th percentile for targets per out run, 9th percentile for yards per out run, 17th percentile for ADOT, 14th percentile for yak per reception, and then 64th percentile for route percentage. So at least the only positive is that at least he's not blocking when he's out there. He's running routes when he's out there, but man, this is bad because you need to have efficiency at tight end. Because this is kind of the flow chart and why I like this chart, because you have points per game, right? That is where everything's coming from. Now, to get the points per game, you could just be someone that earns a ton of targets and get there on 100 catchers like Zach Ertz. Will we go to targets per out run? No, he's not that guy. So if you can't command a bunch of targets, can you at least be efficient? We see yards per out run? No. Well, if you're not efficient, are you at least catching balls downfield? Because then if you're catching balls downfield, maybe you can be efficient down the line. No. 6.1 yard ADOT. He's not catching balls downfield, and he's not explosive after the catch with just a 4 yards after the catch per reception. So it's like, man, this is all very tough. Now, also, I have the R squared from all of my tight ends tested from year 1 to year 2. So how sticky are these stats from year 1 to year 2? All of them are pretty sticky besides yak per reception. So these are numbers that are sticky year to year, that matter, that kind of just break down tight end production into, 5 components, and he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. So it's tough. He's also a silver tight end prospect. He would be like the tight end 6 in this draft class. So he's just not somebody that I want to bet on. I'm not crazy about him. I know that there's some guys out there that might really like him. So what I would be trying to do, especially, there's no Kyler Murray. He's probably not going to produce this year. What I would be trying to do is using him to get into other tight end bets I'd rather make. So these are a couple of good ones here where you can take Trey McBride and you can turn that into, Trey McBride, David Montgomery in a third. You get Greg Dulcich and Terry McLaurin. I kind of just like the idea of taking McBride, adding something to it, and then getting Greg Dulcich while he's kind of cheap right now with, them trading for Troutman and Sean Payton talking down on Dulcich. You can also, I would love the idea of taking Trey McBride on a second and getting Darren Waller. That is absolutely massive. And then as well, if you can just kind of use him as a sweetener with like a late first and just go get a random 2024 first, I also love that kind of deal. Again, like you don't have to get him off your roster, but he's somebody where if you can kind of use him to, sweeten up a deal or something, I would absolutely look into that. Now, that is going to do it for us today. Again, if you want the entire rankings, if you want to see every single buy, sell that I have for each and every single one of these players, that will be on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. The description will be, or the link to it will be in the description. It'll be down below in the comments. Again, I have my top 300 Superflex tight end premium rankings on there, included my top 50 quarterbacks, top 50 tight ends, top 100 running backs, top 100 wide receivers. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into these. You get a bunch of stuff. You get my redraft rankings. You'll get my RS grades. You'll get exclusive stuff in the Discord. There is a billion perks to joining the Patreon. Make sure you check it out. But if not, any support is appreciated, whether that's liking the video, subscribing, leaving a comment. But as always, I love you guys, and I will see y'all in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice.
Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena for misdemeanors. Dreamer, held back asses, Loki still a zen. And I still shake a bull squat.